Welcome to Gents Garage. Today we will be replacing an oil filter and doing the oil service on a ZXR400. The parts you'll need is a HF303 filter. Mine is an RC version just because there are some performance parts on the bike. 10W40 oil. You can use 5W40, 5W50 and 10W50. It is recommended that you only put 3 litres in if you are changing the oil filter as well, just due to you do lose some oil when changing the filter. The tools you need is a range of sockets. On my specific vehicle it is 6, 5 and 4 Allen keys, a choice of ratchets. I have got an extension bar just to make life a little bit easier, a torque wrench which talks about 20 Newton meters for the drain plug, set of pliers. My oil cap has been sat around for 2 years, so I did need to use a pair of thin node pliers just to be able to break the seal, and a pair of pliers for the oil filter. Now these are specialists for the oil filters. It's just a case of being able to grab it and turn it. However, you should be able to break them with your hand. If you do not have any of these, fear not, you can put a screwdriver through the oil filter to be able to get it going. Just be careful, as they can have oil splashback which can get into your eyes. For that I do recommend a set of goggles, some gloves, and of course the brake cleaner and some cloths to be able to clean up afterwards. Trays are always a good idea just for all the loose bolts so you don't lose them when working on the vehicle. The only other 3 items to mention is a collection pan for the old oil, some containers to be able to store the oil in, and some P.P.E for the floor. I do use sponges as well as knee pads, as you don't want to get bad knees when you're older, because you won't be able to enjoy your motorbiking. Before starting, I would fix the bike itself in an upright position. You can use paddock stands, however they can be quite costly. However, a piece of rubber block or a piece of wood under the kickstand would do just fine. Bearings itself on the left hand side are secured by bolts all the way around, as well as one underneath just there. Now I believe they are meant to be Phillips, however all mine have been replaced with Allens. As you can see just there, this fairing has been broken in multiple places. Normally there are 2 Allen key bolts or Phillips bolts holding the fairings in, which will need to be removed. On this right hand side there is the oil cap itself, which I recommend removing just so there is enough airflow going into the engine while the oil is being drained from the bottom. The oil sump plug is located just below the kickstand, as you can see just there. You will of course need an oil collection pan when doing this, as there is going to be 3 litres of oil draining from the engine. As you can see just there, the sump plug washer does also have an O-ring which does need to be replaced when refitting. As you can see, it's now turned into a very thin stream, so it's almost empty. This oil is now being used, so I do not recommend putting it into another vehicle or cooking your dinner with it. Oil has now turned from a stream to droplets. I'm just going to give it a couple more minutes to get every last drop out of it, as well as any debris that might be in the engine. On its last few drops, so I am happy to refit it. I have now fitted the new sump washer itself, as well as giving the actual bolt a bit of a clean. You can do this with just a bit of sandpaper. At the start I would recommend just putting it in by hand, just to not cross thread the engine block, as that can cause further issues. Once the sump plug has got to the end of its thread, you will need a torque wrench and a 7mm socket. This is torqued up to 20 Newton meters, which you can hear from the audible click. Once torqued up, I do recommend you just give it a bit of a clean, as during testing we will need to know if there is any oil dripping out the bottom. If any residual oil is present, it could look like a leak when actually it's just the old oil that has come out. Next is the oil filter, which is located between the radiators themselves, which is just there, and the exhaust just there. is attached to the engine block itself, and this little black filter is the oil filter itself. Just remember to put an oil pan under it when removing it. As you can see just there, I have damaged the oil filter housing a little bit when taking it off with the pliers. If you are struggling, you can remove this bracket just here to allow more access, and simply puncture up the oil filter housing with a screwdriver. Just be cautious of the oil splashback. I've left the oil filter on top of the exhaust just to drain the oil out of it, and as you can see just there, the rest of the engine oil is draining out. When refitting the new oil filter, just make sure there's a bit of new fresh oil around the seal itself. Now mine has, as you can see, come with it, so there's no need to apply it. When refitting the engine oil filter, the reason why we actually lubricate the seal is when we're tightening it to the engine block, it has some lubrication so it doesn't pinch or rip as we're sealing it. Once it has been tightened, just give it a good clean with, once again, brake cleaner, just to get rid of any old oil residue, so when testing the bike we know it's not the oiled oil. I've set up a long nose funnel for the engine oil itself. Just makes the things a little bit easier, but you can do it without it. Just make sure you have lots of rags, and once again more brake cleaner to clean it up afterwards. It's 3 litres that goes into this engine, and once again I will be using Rockall's 10W40. Once it has been filled, you can now refit the oil cap itself. However, just give it a good clean all the way around the edges, and the seal located just here with a nice clean cloth. The oil has been replaced and the oil cap refitted. You can move the bike onto a level plane, and the oil should float between there. There are markings for max and min, as you can see there, either top or bottom, which will give you a rough idea how far you are, but it does need to be on level ground. If you have too much oil, please do remove it, as in extreme cases it can cause hydro-locking of the engine. Once this has been completed, I do recommend leaving this left fairing off, just to be able to run the bike itself and check for leaks. However, I won't be able to demonstrate as I've currently got the battery on charge and the fuel tank removed. Once the vehicle has reached operating temperature and is leak tight, you can refit the components in reverse order, following any torque figures to refit the components.